Alrighty, well thanks for joining us today. We have Representative Jim Walsh here, chair of our state party in Washington, and I'm Jolie Lansdowne, chair of your King County Republican Party, and we're excited today to talk about the Washington State Constitution. You know, what does a party do is a question that I get asked a lot, and one of the things that we do essentially is help people run their government. And that looks like a lot of different things. It looks like supporting candidates. It looks like helping people vote and getting equipped with information. And one of those equipping pieces is learning about our Washington State Constitution. We were at the Constitution Day picnic just last week, where Jim was kind enough to come and share some great information about how Washington's Constitution is unique to others, and it spurred a great conversation, an invitation. I'm like, Jim, the people need to know about this. So come on into the studio. Let's talk about our Constitution, and you can tell us some great information and key points about it. And so I've got my Constitution here today.
There we go, right.
These tabs might give you the impression that I know a lot about it, but I'm really eager to learn more and hear more about how our state operates. So let's just dive on in. Jim, my first question is, what would surprise us about our Constitution? Maybe some practical things that we just don't know about it.
Yeah, great question. I love the state constitution in Washington. I think in many ways it's superior even to the U.S. Constitution. Although the state constitution recognizes the U.S. Constitution as the highest law of the land and defers to it, there are elements of our state constitution that are superior in many ways to the federal constitution. And at that event the other night, at the Constitution Day event, it was interesting that people who were just at that park, when we started talking about the Constitution, like stopped. They were like walking their dogs or with their kids in a stroller. They were stopping to listen about the state constitution. So I know people want to know more. What would surprise people? I mean, that's an interesting question. I guess I would say there are two articles, and the articles are basically the chapters of the state constitution. There are two articles that deal specifically with public policy issues, things we all want from our government, that other constitutions in other states or the federal constitution either don't talk about or talk about in a very limited way. And for those who are diving into the text, I would say look at Articles 7 and Article 9, so 7 and 9. Article 7 is about taxes. It's about tax policy and how the state can levy taxes, how it can make taxes on things, and how it can't, how it's restricted. The state of Washington can't do certain things. And it affects many elements of our economy in this state. It affects really the cost of living in our state. It affects many things, tax policy. People know this, they know it kind of intuitively, but they don't always understand the nuts and bolts of how you determine how much sales tax is going to be, or how much the B&O tax, business and occupation tax, our main business tax in the state, how that's going to be set, and how property tax. People have lots of questions about property tax in the state, how property tax is going to be set. So Article 7 describes these things, and it says a number of things. The most important thing that Article 7 talks about is that taxes in Washington State should be flat. The term that the Constitution uses is uniform on all like classes of assets, of things. So, and in common application, that means they should be flat, that uniform. If there's going to be a tax on property, it should be flat and the same for everybody, a percentage, the rate. Now, the value of your property, if you own a multi-million-dollar mansion, your tax bill is going to be higher than if you own a little cottage. But the rate, the percentage should be the same. And the concept behind that in our Constitution is, if everybody's paying the same percentage in taxes to the state government, they have the same right to a voice. You don't have to be as wealthy as some tech bro billionaire to have the right to go to Olympia and say, I don't like this or I do like that. And if you're paying your part, people in tax debates always talk about it, your fair share. Well, our Constitution says the fair share is defined by everybody paying the same percentage. And you know, if you own a small cottage, maybe your property, hopefully your property tax bill is less than some big giant house, but your percentage is the same. So you've got every right to complain or support something the government's doing because you're paying the same piece. The same applies to sales taxes. They're supposed to be uniform. Now, we start getting away from that with the way we do sales taxes because we have different sales tax rates for different things, and that raises some constitutional question. Generally, the courts have decided that variance in sales tax, depending on the kind of transaction, is okay. I don't agree with that, but that's the standard. And then the same applies also to the business and occupation tax, which is a tax on a business's total gross sales. It's not an income tax or a profit tax. It's a tax on the top line sales of any business. And certain businesses are exempted if they're very small. But generally speaking, businesses have to pay this B&O tax. Now that gets very far from what the Constitution says in Article 7, because our business taxes are various. Different industries, if you're in a different industry, you pay a different percentage on that top line sales business tax. And that's one of the problems with our B&O tax, and one of the reasons it needs reform is it doesn't match up with the spirit of the Constitution, which says these rates ought to be the flat for everybody. It doesn't matter if you're in a recycling business or writing computer code or running a store. You should be paying the same B&O rate. That is not how we do it currently. And this has been a sore point in Olympia, is some of us are saying we should reform our B&O so it follows Article 7 and is flat. The other article that would surprise people is Article 9. And Article 9 is the section of the state constitution that talks about basic education. And this has been in the news for years because various lawsuits have been filed around the definition of basic education and how does Olympia fund schools, how does it fund basic education. And again, if you go back to the source document, to the Constitution, Article 9 is very well written. It says that a high quality basic education, which in modern term practice means K-12, kindergarten to 12th grade, kindergarten through high school, has to be accessible, provided, the state has to provide it to every child in the state, regardless of the child's background.
Wow.
Rich or poor, white or black, tribal, non-tribal, whatever. All children need to have access to the same high quality basic education. And it describes that, providing that high quality basic education as the paramount duty of the state government.
Now that one really surprises me. That's like the number one duty. And this is huge. I almost feel like we need to pause here for a second and really let that sink in. Like, this is different than a lot of other constitutions, right?
Oh yeah.
Washington is the only one
that talks about it so plainly. Most other states are silent on the issue. Some talk about education, but none give it its own section the way our Constitution does and describes what that means in the detail that ours does.
Yeah, and with all that we're navigating now in education, I feel like we've gotten really far
Absolutely.
from this.
The Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction, OSPI, is the main state of Washington agency, the bureaucratic agency that's in charge of overseeing K-12 education in our state. And they have gone far, far away from Article 9. And when I've occasionally had dealings with Mr. Reichel, who's the superintendent of that organization, that agency, I've reminded him what Article 9 says about delivering a high-quality basic education to all children, and he kind of fumbles about. He just doesn't see it that way. He thinks children need to get sort of psychiatric care and what they call social and emotional learning. And it's like, no, that's not what it says.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Wow.
those are the two, I think, Article 7 and Article 9. And I would encourage anybody, get online or get the book you have there, drill into those two articles, read them, and I think you'll get a good understanding of what our government in Olympia should be doing.
That's really helpful. Jim, thank you so much for explaining that, and really appreciate you being here today and sharing Article 7, Article 9. Check them out. They're not that long,
No.
and they're clearly and plainly written, and that's really great. Thank you a lot for sharing about that with us today, and we'll be back for more later.